Einstein once said, "The woman who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. The woman who walks alone is likely to find herself in places no one had ever been before." By writing women like these, Shakespeare encouraged women to break out of their barriers. But was he really a supporter of women, or was it all for a good plot? Well, I'll tell you what I know thus far. Shakespeare's writing showed the roles of women in the medieval time period, while also showing an innovational side of women that has inspired many to work towards gender equality today. Throughout my presentation, I will cover the categories you see on the screen in order to tie together the ideas of gender inequality throughout time. Let's start with familiar territory, A Midsummer Night's Dream. We're all familiar with the female characters by now, so comparing them should be a breeze. Let's start with the kick-butt female characters first. Titania is the queen of fairies, but she doesn't let the title queen differ any from the title king. Titania leads the fairies all by herself, even whilst her and Oberon are going through some issues separately. Titania takes her newfound power exceptionally by keeping the fairy world in order. Well, minus the time where all the seasons went wacky. Titania also stands up to her husband on many occasions because of her want for the Indian boy. She's risking her marriage, her kingdom, her entire life for one boy. Not only is that a very bold move for a woman in those times, but it also shows that she can be a caring, maternal figure along with the stubborn, brave person she is. Now that's pretty rad if you ask me. Next, we have the women Shakespeare portrays as expected women of the time. Let's talk about Helena. Helena says several times in the play that it is unacceptable for her to ask Demetrius to court her, yet she's still hopelessly in love with him. In Act 2, Scene 1, Helena says, "Your behavior is an insult to all women. We cannot fight for love as men can. We should be pursued and courted. We weren't made to do the pursuing." Helena feels as if she has no power as a woman, and she's using it to her total advantage. She wants Demetrius to see her as needing of him, for that's how she feels she is. Helena has no self-respect or independence, and she believes it's because of her gender. Now, to learn more about Shakespeare's opinion on women, we must look at more of his work beyond A Midsummer Night's Dream. There are many other women in his works that show the true definition of courage. Juliet is one of them. Yes, Juliet as in, "Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" or something cheesy like that. Juliet loves Romeo with all of her being, but this doesn't mean she depends on him because he's a man. No way. Romeo and Juliet love each other equally and unconditionally. Juliet, like Hermia, risks her life in order to try and convince her family that Romeo is the one she's destined to be with. When she fakes her death, she's giving up all of her life at home to run away with Romeo. Though it doesn't work out quite as planned, she makes a bold move in order to be with the one she loves, which was unthinkable for a woman in those days. The Taming of the Shrew, on the other hand, is the story of two women, the shrew, Katharina, and her beautiful sister, Bianca, who aren't as inspirational. Bianca is being pursued by 3 men at the moment. However, Bianca does not have permission to marry at all until her sister, Katharina, is married by order of their father. Now, there's one problem. Katharina is ill-mannered, ill-tempered, ill-looking, and she says far too much more than people believe a woman should say. So Bianca's lovers create a plan to set up Katharina with a man named Petruchio. Petruchio and Katharina get married, though Katharina is foreign, but Petruchio has a plan up his sleeve. In order for her to be acceptable to him, Petruchio trains Katharina to follow orders, or else she'll be denied food, sleep, and her new clothing. She finally agrees, and she now has become the most obedient wife. Though some believe that Shakespeare did not actually feel this way about women's roles, men in his time did. Katharina's treatment brings me to my next topic. Women of medieval times. Women who lived in Shakespeare's era were expected to be seen and not heard. But it wasn't even that simple. Women were held up to standards in everything, and they were constantly being judged by everyone. Back then, men ruled over all. Women had no power in society and little in the household. When girls were children or youth, they belonged to their fathers. And when they were old enough to get married, they belonged to their husbands. Women very rarely had jobs, and their responsibilities were tied strictly to the household, or they would aid their husbands in their work. Women in Shakespeare's time were forced to be dependent. They had no rights, and they were bound to society's expectation on every aspect of their life. Obviously, we've progressed since then, but how much? Women in America certainly have made it a long way since Shakespeare's time. Here, we have the right to vote, work, and in fact, we have the right to do everything a man has the right to do. Our modern-day rights are much better than those of medieval times. However, even in America, women are still held up to society's standards, whether of what job they pursue, how smart they are, or their beauty. Though they shouldn't exist, barriers of gender are still up today. It's our responsibility to tell a woman she could be a CEO, not because of her gender, but because of her character and who she is without her label. It's about time for me to wrap this up, so let's review what we learned. Shakespeare showed both the gender roles of the time and his characters who weren't defined by gender. Shakespeare opened a door to the fight for erasing the label of gender. However, the only ones who can continue his work are us. Thank you for listening to me today. And as Barry Nazarian once wrote, a woman is human. She is not better, wiser, stronger, more intelligent, more creative, or more responsible than a man. Likewise, she is never less. Equality is given. A woman is human.